Hello everyone, my name is Michael Breinhorst. I'm the CEO of TradeWorks. Sorry it took a little while for you to get into this webinar today. We had a bit of some technical issues, but welcome everyone. I believe Nordin is trying to get in as well, and looks like he's arriving now. So Nordin, you're welcome to interrupt when your connection is stable again. But how about if I get started so we don't waste more time on the technical side? Again, my name is Michael Breinhorst. I've been asked by Nordin to give a presentation today of TradeWorks, which I'll happily do. Now, compared to the typical presentations that I do, this one we're trying to balance both getting into detail, getting everybody introduced to TradeWorks, showing you around with the platform, but also to take it a bit further than we would typically do within, you could say, with first-time clients, because we know that you guys are more experienced than most, and also we'll be taking it a bit further in regards to value proposition, in regards to the unique features of TradeWorks, listing those as well, so that once you speak to your clients, then you have an ability to you could say to represent the proper value that TradeWorks brings to traders. So there's a small chat box. Some of you have already found it. Please interrupt if you have any questions at any point in time. I'll either come up with an answer right away, or I'll make sure that I include the answer in the next section of the demonstration today. So the demonstration is, or the presentation is going to be a part PowerPoint and part real, you could say real slides, a real demo. Before I begin, I should let you know, you've seen this a million times before, I'm sure. It's a risk disclaimer saying that whatever I say is for information purposes only, and of course if you decide to turn around and start trading on some of the things I've said, then it's for your own risk and your own money. So without, you can say, spending more time with that, let me just get to the agenda. Quick introduction to TradeWorks. I'll give you a tour about how to connect your MT4 account, how to create your first strategy, and some tips and tricks of you could say, general navigation. Then I'll be stepping it up a bit, going into some advanced options to show you really how far you can take TradeWorks as it is today. And at the end, some closing remarks about how to really best sell TradeWorks and get the most of it to all parties. So let me get into it, a quick introduction to TradeWorks. Really, it all begins with the trader. And it begins with a trader that is struggling a lot to, you could say, overcome some really, really negative performance drivers, in particular information overload. There's simply way too much information in the marketplace for any human being really to process, probably even to process, but also the processing the relevant. And I believe many of us can agree that when it comes to data processing, if it has a good format, then computers are significantly faster than human beings in processing that. At the same time, when it comes to actually clicking the buy and the sell button, if you actually have, you can say, processed all the information, you still need to make a decision when you want to buy and when you want to sell. And you could say today many traders are left with a buy and a sell button, and that is not a good combination when you combine it with human factors and particularly human emotions. And that means that even if the trader reads the information properly, then when it comes to actually clicking the buy and the sell button, often the trader will trade too little when the opportunity was good, and too much when the opportunity was actually not as good as the trader thought. So human factors and emotions will leave inefficiencies even if it's possible to process enough information. And finally, around the clock trading, tricky, you can say that's a problem for everyone if you want to get a bit of sleep, or for those traders that are not full-time traders, with actually most traders are not full-time traders, then having a full-time job is not really a good combination with following the markets in great detail. So So that really was the foundation for TradeWorks and the reason we wanted to build TradeWorks. And to give you a bit of perspective, I've been trading stocks since 1998, trading Forex markets for the last 5 years together with building TradeWorks. And I'll imagine up front, I'm one of the most emotional traders because I get really upset when I lose money and I get really happy when I actually get a good trade through. So I've felt this on my own body, and I'm hearing it all the time from all the traders that I talk to as well. So essentially, what TradeWorks does is we make algorithmic trading accessible because historically, algorithmic trading has only been for professionals, for institutions, hedge funds, whoever has enough money to hire good developers, good programmers to do the, you could say, the data analytics, build the trading systems, and deploy them. And those days are gone. TradeWorks really comes in to the marketplace saying no more programming, and everyone should be able to access algorithmic trading. So what we've done with TradeWorks is really build a full service solution that takes the trader everywhere from, say, beginning with the initial design of the algorithm to testing it, built-in back tester as well. Once you're satisfied with the algorithm as you've designed it and you've tested it, you can go ahead and trade it. And you don't have to worry about setting up a VPS. You don't have to worry about having multiple accounts here and there. You log into TradeWorks, you build everything, you test it, you trade it, and then you analyze it afterwards. And you do it all in one seamless solution in one place. The great thing about it is that when you then have changes to make, if you've analyzed, perhaps you've taken too much risk, you want to lower your trade size, or you want to trade more, then you can go back to your algorithm and you can tweak it, and you can do that without any programming. You can do it in real time. So really, that brings you back to the design phase, and then you can do it all again, so to speak. So it becomes a very compelling and sticky software that really entertains the trader and also gets a bit of trading done, which is great because it does create a market opportunity for you guys to generate more business through the existing client base, and obviously also attract a new client base. But let me get into that part later in this presentation. So before we jump into the demo, let's just give you just a heads up for those of you that have not built an algorithm before. The difference between trading manually and trading automated is not at looking at the market and making observations. Really what this is about defining the rules. So you could, and many traders would argue that, well, they have a lot of rules about how to get into a trade. So everybody is talking about Fibonacci points, about pivot points, about all sorts of indicators, price action patterns, and so forth. And they get into these trades, and perhaps then that's something we see a lot. They really forget about the risk. They forget about risk management. They forget about how to get out of the positions again. So really, what we hope to do with TradeWorks is provide a framework where it becomes a natural thing to define both how you want to get in, how you want to be in, and how you want to get out of trades. Because to do an automated trading strategy, you need to be able to instruct the computer when you want to do it. So if you don't have those instructions, the computer is not going to do anything for you. So really, you need to go through the motions. So in this case, we've had the testing as well. So that means you don't have to go through your own chart 5 months, 6 months, a year back. You can literally just set up the rules based on your assumptions, test it, change it, test it again, and keep going until you're satisfied. And when you're satisfied, put it on a real money account and continue to review. I'll even argue that you should run a full portfolio of algorithms, but I'll get to that later in the presentation. Having said all that, it is time for a demo of TradeWorks. I don't have the screen open here, no questions so far, so I'm just going to go straight ahead and give you guys a demo. So this is the login screen, and I have a demo ready for you here.
Hi, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, I'm glad. Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I had a small issue, but I was still listening. I didn't want to interrupt you before. I had just a small technical issue, but I'm back.
So that means you can also monitor for questions from me if I'm
Yep.
into the presentation
Yes.
here. So
Yeah,
that's
Guy, you
excellent.
have the chat in the bottom left. If you have any question, let me know, and we'll answer them throughout the webinar at the end.
Perfect. Perfect. So I just logged in to my TradeWorks profile. This is my profile, and I have my strategies in here, and they're not found anywhere else. It's only me to see. And really, what I have is a navigation that consists of 4 components. The top left, if I go to full screen, it becomes easier to see here. The top left has everything to do with trading. So I have my templates, which are some default templates that I can look into in a moment about how to get started quickly. I have my own strategies, some strategy sharing component. I can go and visit various support pages. And on the top right, I have all the, you can say, the account related things that hasn't really got much to do with the actual strategies. So I have an activity feed. I can add a trading account, which I'll get back to. I can see a bit about myself and obviously log out. At the bottom right, I have a help button that gives me access to search directly into the knowledge base and also chat with our support. And at the bottom left, I have a little language widget that today has several European languages, a couple of the Asian languages, Indonesian and Chinese as well. And this one actually automatically follows the browser. So if you're German speaking, your browser is German, then it'll default to German. In this case here, it's Deutsch. So now the application will speak German to me. Mine speaks English. And you can always override it if you want a different language, but typically we have a really good hit record of getting it to the right language. So that's the overall navigation. Underneath my strategies, you have a sub menu as well, which has the strategies, any open trades. This is going to be empty because we're not trading at the moment, and some historical trades. Again, it's empty because we haven't traded yet. So let me walk you through the steps of how to get started building your first algorithm. So let's say I've looked at the chart. I've identified the pattern or the indicators that I believe will actually give me the proper setup to get into a position. And I have 2 ways to really start building this algorithm. I can either create it from scratch, which means clicking on the red button here in the top right, or I can pick up from one of my templates. If I've done my own analysis, I would begin with creating a strategy from scratch. Before I do that, and I will do that for you, I just want to show you this template strategy section as well, because in here you can actually find inspiration to what you want to trade. So the list here on the left, these are all ready-made strategies we've done really for research purposes. So they give you some insight into what you can do with TradeWorks. So that you'll find strategies in here that trade a lot, some trade a little, some are extremely simple, some are very complex, some take advantage of price action, some use indicators. So we really try to map out all the components of TradeWorks and put them into proper trading strategies. When I say proper, it also means that some of them are not profitable at all times. If all of them were profitable at all times, then I probably wouldn't be speaking to you today because I would just put a big loan out in my house and throw money after all this. But you could say that's my job here is to build the platform so everybody else can do it. And for the columns, you can sort it with 5 days, 30 days, and 90 days performance. So for instance, you're looking for an algorithm that has done well within 30 days or on a 30-day basis, then you can literally click on it and you can see the performance on the right-hand side. These are high-level numbers and they're all based in pips. So these green numbers here, this is the pips, profit in pips. And the reason we've done it in pips is so that it's neutral to the trader's trade size. Because if we showed you the amount in profit, then it would also be sensitive to how much risk the individual trader would take. So that would skew the equation, so to speak. But here, if you like something, if you see something you like it, for instance, let's say this Sugoi reversal here, it's trading sterling against yen, and I'm looking at the chart on the right, thinking on the last 30 days, I've been following the market quite well. This one has done really well. It's got more than 80% profitable trades, 14 out of 17. So that's quite impressive for a 30-day strike rate. And I'm thinking when I look at the sterling and the yen markets that more or less I expect the next month to be somewhat similar to the current month. Then if I want a copy of this, all I need to do is click the blue get button. And I said copy, but really what this is, it's a clone. So we've now made a clone of this particular strategy and we've put it into my strategies. So now I can actually find a copy of it here. Now I can test it. I can actually begin to trade it. Of course, I would have to go in and actually set the trade size to what I want and the risk settings and perhaps even adjust it a bit. That's one of the most popular features we have, and this is the reason I'm starting out here. Roughly 8 out of 10 traders, when they get started with TradeWorks, will take one of the templates, modify it, and start using it. Literally 8 out of 10 will do that. And so, this is not a lot of traders actually just pick up a template and trade it straight up as it is. Most will actually go in and modify it. So that is a very popular option, and we're constantly adding new algorithms to this template list. So there's going to be more and more in here. If I wanted to build a strategy, and let me do that actually, let me build one from scratch to show you really how easy this is and how easy it is to get started. TradeWorks is not targeting extremely advanced algo traders. We're not targeting programmers that can build the most amazing things in MQL or easy language or simple language or whatever language that the programmer works in. We are targeting people that, disregarding how long they've been trading, could be a month, it could be 10 years, but the ones that are new to algo trading or are not capable of doing the programming themselves. And this is the majority of the market. So coming in here and doing something very simple is very important to us, that is possible to do. So let's say we've looked at the charts and we have a theory and we'd like to test it. And the theory is that there's a high correlation between the US dollar and the Canadian dollar. And we know that there's a Donald Trump out there and he does weird things and makes weird tweets once in a while. But give or take, overall, there's a big correlation between the two economies, and hence there must be a big correlation between the two currencies. And we found out a way to trade that, and we're keeping things as simple as they can get. So this is an indicator-based strategy. We'll click on the indicator button, and the indicator that I'll choose is a relative strength index. And in here you'll find all the indicators that you have in MT4, and you'll also find a set of custom indicators that will give you, and there's a description of them as well, that'll give you an ability to do some of the things that are not by default inside of MT4. But let me take the relative strength index here and make a simple logic for you. We're going to do it on the 5-minute because it's a short term, it's a high frequency trading strategy I want to build. Well, not super high frequency, of course, but it's on a 5-minute buy. It's still higher frequency than most traders. And the symbol that we'll be using, I'm going to keep the strategy simple. And the reason I say this is because if I decide to try to trade another currency pair, for instance, Aussie dollar against the US dollar, then I can switch that on the strategy and it automatically changes the indicator. So the indicator will follow whatever the strategy is running on. I'm going to apply it to close prices, and I'm going to tighten up the period a bit to 10. And this way I have an RSI indicator that moves very fast with the price, and it gives me a lot of short-term signals that I want to trade on. And because there's a high correlation, I want to trade, you could say, towards a mean reversion, meaning that when the RSI is low, it's signaling oversold and I want to buy, and the other way around, when it's high, I want to sell. So let me build those two signals for you. I'll begin with a buy signal. So I'll just say buy here. And I'm going to buy, and I have some options. I can use parentheses in my logic, which means I can build some fairly complex stuff. I can use my indicator. I can use the bar, so the open, high, low, close values if I want to build a price action pattern. And I can also use the symbol. In this case, it would be the price of the dollar Canadian. And in this case, I wanted to use the RSI. So I now have an option to trade the RSI. The reason it says previous here is I can actually go back and into the historic values of the RSI 20 bars back. But in this case, I'm just going to look at the previous value, and the previous value, of course, is the last fixed value of the RSI. It won't change when it's, you can say, the previous value. And I'm going to say when that is below, less than here, 25. And I click amount, and I can write 25. And that's it. That is the simplest rule I can come up with. Maybe euro-dollar is greater than 1 would be more simple, but this is very simple. So we're going to keep that. Now, one thing, though, that I will want to put in is I want to put in what we call throttling, signal throttling. And the reason I want to put that in is I don't want this to trade all the time, because this is going to be true for 5 minutes. So I want this to be every 5 minutes. So I am prepared to open a new trade every 5 minutes as long as this logic up here is true. I'm going to save it. I'll build exactly the same for the short position. In this case, I want to sell when I'm above 75. We take the indicator, we say greater than, and we say 75. We also put in the throttling of 5 minutes, and we now have another entry rule. So now I have an indicator that I use in different ways. One is to buy and one is to sell. As you probably noticed, I have two bars over here, two, you could say, cards that were pre-filled out. We opened this rule. And the reason they're pre-filled out is that these are mandatory for any trading strategy to run. We always need to know the trade size. Without a trade size, you cannot trade. In this case, we'll put the trade size to 1 lot because that is what we prefer to trade. And the other thing we need to know is when I get a signal buy and I get another signal, what do I do with the other signal? I've already bought, so do I buy again or do I ignore that extra signal? And also, if I already bought and I get a short signal to go short, what do? Do I close the long position? Do I ignore it? That's what this rule is all about. So the first one, add additional signal. We can say add additional entry signal. What do I do if it's in the same direction? I can ignore it and only keep one trade open. Or I can add. And we want to open a new trade every 5 minutes. So keep adding. That's the position on this strategy. And in the opposite direction, what do I do then? In this case, I could have 5 trades open long, and now the strategy is telling me to go short. What do? I want to close the 5 and then open up a short signal right away. So that would be close and then reverse the position. I could also just use it as a closing signal, and I can also ignore it if I want to stay in. And I can hedge if I want both the long and short trades open at the same time. But I want to close in reverse. So that's what I do, and I click Save. This is really enough to get this strategy going. We don't have to put in more things. Now, I'll just show you a couple of things you can do, because this is a very simple strategy. It uses the sell signal to go out of my long positions, and it's using the buy signal to go out of my short position. There are other ways to do things, and I want to show them to you. I'll show a few of them here. Regarding money management. Now, here you have 3 different areas. You have your entry settings, which is the trade size. You can have your exit settings, and you have some strategy management rules as well. On the exit side, I can design a custom exit. In this case, I can build a rule similar to the entry rule that can take me out of the position. It could be using other indicators, price action, what have you. I also have access to stop loss, take profit, trailing stop, and a time to close. Typically, for instance, the time to close is a great rule to say, if I made a trade, I went into a trade, and if I didn't hit my targets, let's say within an hour, within a day perhaps, if I didn't hit my target, take me out of the position because I was clearly wrong. Then time to close is a great rule to use for that. On the strategy side, I can control my exposure. It's something I'll get back to you as well. But in this case, I'll simply say maximum open trades. It's one of the more simple ways of calculating. I'll just say, listen, for this particular strategy, I don't want more than 20 trades open at any one time. And also, I'm thinking that I want to actually take some profits on the way, even though it hasn't reversed yet. So I'll put in a take profit as well. And as you can see, there's no programming, so it's very easy to type in these rules. And I'm going to be very, very short-term mind. I'm going to be looking at catching a quick 30 pip take profit. And I now an option popped up which says that I can set the take profit broker side. It's set up by default. What it does is that when the trade opens, we actually ping the server at the broker and insert the 30 pip stop loss. And that way the stop is executed directly on the MT4 server, giving, you can say, obviously the quickest execution possible. If you prefer not to have it, we can take it off, and then it'll simply be monitored as part of the rest of the trading strategy. I'm going to set it to 30 and save it. So this essentially, this is the strategy. What I need to do now is two things. One, I need to set that this was actually not euro dollar as this is set up to. I need to change it to the dollar Canadian. So I do that by selecting it on this list. Now I have the full strategy, and the second choice is to start it. Should I start it on a simulated backtest? Should I start it on a demo account? That's all up to you. If I did it on a backtest, let's say we'll just do some few days here. I'm going to use the 5-minute data, and I'll set the spread to 2. I don't have 100,000 Canadian. I probably have 10, so I'm going to do that, and then I'll do a test, which takes some seconds. In the meantime, I can also just show you some of the things that we have available here in the top line. They're not available now because the strategy is blocked, but I can actually make a duplicate, another clone of my own strategy. So if, for instance, I want to go and test some other things about this strategy, I can actually make save a copy of it for later use. Also, on the all the way to the right, I have the share button, and I have a delete button. And you saw now that the results came in, and it had considering that we only tested for a week, and it actually showed 206 trades. So as I said, this is a fairly high, you could say, frequency trading strategy because it's running on a short time frame, and it trades 24 hours a day, every day of the week. This particular strategy is showing some really good performance until it hits a big loss, but could say, given the fact that I traded one lot at a time, then perhaps I should be doing that with 17 trades, 17 consecutive losses. So that means I've actually lost a lot of money, and that's probably this big loss right here. If I look at it on a drawdown perspective, I'm looking at 45% drawdown. So this is I was a bit over trading, but it's a good example about making sure that the trade size and your risk is really aligned to your equity when it comes down to it. I can also see a chart about how all this trading in this simulation has been. All the green lines show profit, all the red lines show loss. I can zoom in, I can zoom out, I can move around and see all this red stuff. That's my big loss at the end. And here I have a good combination where it's starting to go short. The price moves up, I do a bit more shorting. Price moves up, I do a lot of shorting. And then finally the price drops and I take some profits and a few losses. If I'm more detailed, I can go into trade history, and here I have a full table of every trade in this backtest in the simulation. If I want to get even more granular in my analysis, I can actually just go in, copy this, and paste it directly into a spreadsheet. It's very easy to do. So that was the testing. Let me show you how you can actually get this turned on. No reason why not to. So what I need to do now is add an account. I need to go in and instruct which trading account do I want to. And I already have a demo account ready. So I'm just going to add that. It's trading on demo. And let me just find the username and password. I accept the terms. And now we are pinging the MT4 server. And this is a real demo. It took about, what, 3, 4, 5 seconds. And now the MT4 server has confirmed that and verified that there is in fact a demo account with this name. And I am in fact the guy that's allowed to trade on it. So it's going to show green over here in the status field. And I can go back to my strategy, locate it. This is the right strategy. I can now say trade on the demo account and click enable. It's going to take a few seconds for us to compile all the data that's included in the algorithm, and then we're going to set it up on one of the trading nodes, and now it is beginning to process data coming from the MT4 server. So I can now go to bed, I can log out, and this will continue to trade. I can take some sleep, wake up in the morning, and see how it's done. The great thing is that when we say how it's done, we're not looking at my account. We're not looking at this one MT4 account saying, how is this account doing? Then what really this is about the individual strategy. How is this particular strategy doing? And the great thing is that we already filter for that in TradeWorks. So as you can see, my strategy 1 up here, that is in fact our strategy here. And I can literally do the 5, 30, and 90-day analysis, giving a lot more details than I had with just the templates. Then I can see the performance. I can see that there perhaps would be a question from Emmerich. Feel free to write the question in the chat, and I'll be happy to answer. Excellent question. The question is, can we select multiple pairs for one strategy or one strategy pair? At the moment, it is one strategy equals one pair, but there's nothing that prohibits me from taking this particular strategy, clicking on the duplicate button, and now you can see I have a clone of it. I'll take this clone, I will put it on, well, I can actually go in and see more. I will do, let me do the, let me find out. Aussie dollar. There you go. I'll put it to Aussie dollar, put it on the demo account, and enable it. So now I have the same, you could say, same algorithm trading on 2 different currencies on the same demo account. And TradeWorks is going to keep track of each trade. So you can actually run 2, you could have 2 different euro-dollar strategies trading on the same demo account. And each trade will be mapped to each strategy. So that way you can have, you could say, dollar exposure from 2 different strategies at the same time without any issues. The only place it can become really an issue is if A, your broker doesn't support hedging, which is not the case here, and B, an issue if one of the algorithms takes a lot of positions and you have a rule, for instance, in regards to maximum exposure, then the maximum exposure rule is an account rule, that it looks at your overall exposure on your account. And this also goes if you take a manual trade, for instance, on the hand. So that's that's the answer. We now have two strategies going. It'll be fun to see if we can get some trades out of them. I will almost. We only have a a little more time, so perhaps we won't see this. But that, again, what I wanted to show with this is that this is how simple it can be. It doesn't have to be more complex than that. Obviously, if trading and making a big profit was this simple, a lot of people would be doing it, and it probably wouldn't work. But there are options to make this a lot more advanced, and I actually wanted to show you a couple of those before moving on here. So some of the advanced options in TradeWorks is I've talked about indicator based. I've showed you how to build an indicator based strategy and get it running. You could also build price action strategies. You can use bar values to design, you can say, different patterns. For instance, if you want 3 bars going up in a row, if you want to have an engulfing pattern, then you can design it. Currently, there are some boundaries as to how complex this price action can be, but for basic price action strategies, we do support that. In the first quarter next year, we'll be coming out with a substantial release that will add math to all the logic, which means you can add a pip to an indicator value, or you can multiply 2 indicators, you can deduct one from the other, you can make spreads on different currency pairs, and all of that you can say you can do with the math that can be added, and that way you can create some extremely advanced logic. Also, hybrid strategies, and what I mean by a hybrid is that it can take advantage of both price action and indicators at the same time, and you can do that today. I'll be showing you in a minute how to combine logical expressions, because one thing is that the RSI was below 25, but what if I had several other things that had to be true at the same time? Then we can combine it. Very easy to do. I'll show in a minute. Monitor multiple markets is a favorite of mine. When I set up the indicator, why not set up another indicator looking at another market? And you can continue that and create some complex stuff there. I'll have a demonstration of that as well. Customizing your exit timing is something I mentioned. There's no reason that getting into the market should be done the same way as you get out of the market. You can make that asymmetric as you go along. Finally, managing exposure. I mentioned it briefly. Let me show you that as well in the next demo session I do. A couple of more things before we move into the application again is that some of the key concepts when managing exposure, and this is something that you'll see me touch upon everywhere really when we're dealing with algorithms, is that do you want one trade every time you build up a position, or do you want to have multiple trades? Do you want to ease into your position, or do you want to take one big trade? Do you want to, you can say time in market is essential, because if you're not in the market, if you're not, you could say, exposing yourself, you're not taking risk, you're not making any profits either. On the other hand, if you're in the market too much, perhaps you could end up taking too much risk. So that is really something that you should be monitoring and managing and thinking about as well. And finally, limiting number of trades, putting a cap on the algorithm's ability to take risk. And that could, I showed you the one with you could say with 20 trades maximum, but it could also be something on the trade size. It could also be something on how you use margin. You have that flexibility with TradeWorks. And if you have built an RSI simple logic, then what we recommend you do is consider adding filters. And really what the filters will do if you apply them properly is they remove bad trades and perhaps even limit some of the good trades that have too much risk. I have a couple of examples here how to do that. The ADX indicator is an often overlooked indicator. It measures strength of a breakout, and this way, if, for instance, if my RSI strategy, one of the weaknesses is that it will do really poor if the breakout continues. So if this is a strong breakout and it will continue, and it actually creates the foundation of a trend, then the you could say highly correlated mean reversion strategy is not going to work. So using the ADX indicator can actually measure the strength of the breakout, And in this case, I would be looking for some very weak breakouts because they would return to the mean. You could also add a moving average or MACD to really detect the underlying market direction. These are just a couple of examples. But let me jump back into the application and show you how some of these things can look. I have a couple of strategies in here already. The multi-market euro-dollar strategy is a good example of how to monitor multiple markets at the same time. So on the left, you see I have 6 indicators. And the way this strategy is built is I'm looking at trading euro against the dollar. However, I only want to trade, if I want to go long euro, for instance, that is when I see strength in euro on 3 different currency crosses, and I see weakness in dollar on 3 different currency crosses. So I have to have 6 indicators all pointing in the right direction at the same time before I go into the market. So this is a good example of me monitoring many different currencies. In this case, it's the yen, the Swiss franc, and the sterling against euro and dollar in different combinations. And all that combined, if I put it into a rule, can look something like this. And now it gets a little bit more complex than my RSI strategy. So and it really isn't that complicated because it's a repetition of each indicator. They have to be greater than, less than, greater than, and so forth. But what I want you to notice is I'm using this and at the end. And this and is where I join logical expressions. So these are individual building blocks, almost like tiny Lego blocks. And I'm putting them together with a glue that we call and. It could also be or. It could be before, it could be after. So I can add a timing to it. It has to happen then and something to happen. And I showed you also earlier that you can have parentheses all the way over here that I could actually put that into the logical expression as well. So what began as a simple RSI strategy that even extreme newbies could build using very simple logical components, we can actually create a very advanced algorithm that will trade really only when we know that there's a high probability of a profit. In this case, I'm using multiple markets to do it. There's other ways to go about it that I mentioned as well. For instance, the hybrid strategy is a good example. There's actually a template that's a pretty good example of that. If we take this engulfing yuppie and we click the get button, I can show you right now. This is using a combination of price action and an indicator. And my indicator is a moving average, and the price action is an engulfing pattern. And the way that looks is I want to have the engulfing pattern, but only if it's on the right side of the moving average. So I want to go long when I have an engulfing pattern, when that happens below the moving average. And the below the moving average is here when the price is less than the previous moving average here. And this first section up here really describes the engulfing pattern, where I'm taking a look at the open and close values of the different bars. This bar, or you can say the previous bar and the bar 2 bars ago. And I'm combining it with a lot of ands because all of this has to happen at the same time. So that's an example of how you can really put together both price action and indicators into the same strategy. This particular strategy also has you could say a custom exit rule. So not only have I designed how to get into the trade, I'm also designing how to get out. And this one is a way to go out of my long trade. So if I have 2 bars in a row going down, I want to close my long trade. And the way that looks is that I take the previous 4-hour bar. When the close value is less than the open value, and the close value is less than the open value, another bar go. Now I have 2 bars going down. That's going to take me out of all long positions. The same for my short positions, and you recognize the multiple entry signal and the trade size from the previous example. Perhaps we have some open trades now? Not yet. Just checking. Do we have any questions? No. Any questions so far in regards to the complex side of things? Really, what you should think of is TradeWorks is like Lego blocks, that you can take the simplest little block in any color you like, really, and you start building it and put it together, and you can create a house, you can create the Falcon destroyer, Star Wars, whatever, and and build very complex things as well. I'm a big fan of Lego, as you can tell, due to my references here. So that would actually conclude my presentation inside of the TradeWorks application. If there's anything you'd like me to show before I wrap up, then please go ahead and write in the chat. And if not, then I'm going to. Was there one?
I believe there is a question. I will have.
Well, interrupt anytime. Let me wrap up, and we can always just jump into the application again. So there's two things that I've talked about, and one of them I mentioned in the beginning was to consider using a portfolio of strategies. And the reason I'm saying that is that it's very difficult to find that one perfect strategy. There's been a lot of searching done for this. A lot of very highly skilled PhD mathematicians would argue that it is possible, and it may, but it's not for the average Joe really to find it. And therefore, the average Joe has other you could say strategies that he can do, and one of them is to use portfolio strategies. And with TradeWorks, you can run 10 strategies at the same time. You can even run them on 3 different trading accounts if you want to. So you can have some running on demo, some running on. Why not have half of? And whenever a strategy is showing weakness in your live trading, or one of your demo algorithms is performing well, you make a substitution like you do on a football field. Substitute with a fresh player, get him onto the field, and get that to trade as you could say together with the other strategies. I've done a lot of studying on this. I've done a lot of simulations on this, and I'm really surprised how smooth the equity curve becomes when you do portfolio management as well. So consider doing that. Consider running a lot. I mean, it doesn't cost extra to trade on 10 strategies as opposed to 1. So why not use it? That really is my logic. Use it. You also have some resources available to you. Again, there's a quick guide on our website. I showed you the link to the video center and the help center on the inside of the application. We have some videos on our YouTube channel, which is also going to need a big update here coming this new release. And you're also always welcome to write to our support. We have a product support team standing by. They can answer any question you like, almost, but we'll definitely try our best. When it comes to communicating TradeWorks to traders, then let me just pull out some of the features that are worth mentioning and some of the value proposition that entails. And the features really, I've showed you a lot of it, but let me try to wrap it up for you. Seamlessly connect to all MT4 accounts. So there's no VPS needed. It seamlessly connects, and you can simply add the trading account to each of the trading strategies. You can switch them easily. It's a drop down. It's very easy to switch. So you can do that. And it's easy to build a strategy without use of programming. You can work off one of the templates, or you can start to design it from ground up. There's no VPS. You don't have to, because the strategy is already hosted. So everything is done for you online. You can log out. You can go to sleep. And we'll take care of you. Trade up to 10 concurrent strategies provides an ability to do diversification, and you should definitely take advantage of some of the exposure rules for that's built into to the money management section of each strategy. Use the back tester and also run a lot of trading on demo MT4 accounts to get a feel for what your strategy can do and to test it. And then finally, you're able to analyze the performance of each strategy, and it's done on an individual strategy by strategy basis. So even if you're running 10 strategies as a portfolio, you can still see the weakest link in that portfolio very easily with a click of a button. So that's also something to take advantage of. Finally, value proposition. Really what this is, what is your story? Well, trade emotionally on facts and rules. And honestly, it's much easier to stick to your plan. The last of this is actually something that's come up. We've done hundreds of interviews with traders when building TradeWorks, and one of the things that this one is just comes up all the time. A lot of traders, what keeps them awake at night is that they may have a plan, but they're worried that they can't stick to it. And that could be many things. It could be because of emotions. It can be because they have a full-time job. It doesn't matter. What really matters is the emotion that it gets to the trader and his own strategy. If he's worried he can't stick to his plan, he's not going to trade. It's very unlikely that he'll at least trade as much as he could, which means, of course, less business. Also, say goodbye to games. This is my favorite because when I trade manually, I run up massive losses, and that is not good for business in the long term, I can tell you. But if I trade automated, I never get those crazy, you could say, trades, high risk that I make the big losses on. So this is it definitely a way to keep me trading a lot longer and preferably with a lot better performance as well. And again, I mentioned before, no need to a separate BPS service. It saves the trader time, and most of the cases also saves him money. And you have the ability and the transparency to see where you're making your money and where you're taking too much risk, where you're losing your money. And again, you can choose from working on one of the templates, or you can build your own. And finally, did we mention? I think I did. No programming needed. I also showed that to you. So that should not be a concern either. And really, that is a key if you want to move in to the 90 to 95% of traders that are not programmers, then you have to remove the programming requirement, which TradeWorks is really all about. So having said that, that concludes my formal presentation. There's a question here. Yeah, at the moment, the question is there a filter that can protect my strategy from opening trades doing high spread widening? There's two things to that. There's not, you see, straight off the bat, there's no individual rule that will go in and monitor the spread. So we haven't built that yet, but it's a great suggestion. I'll definitely take it forward to the product team. But there are ways that you could say, protect yourself indirectly. Let me see if I can show you. I'll be quick about it. So if you are inside of, let's just create a simple new strategy here. If you want to build an entry signal, you have the ability to base it on the symbol, for instance. And with the symbol, you have the ability to take the bid and the ask price. So one of the things I always mention to traders is that you always want to consider if you're using bid or ask prices. And I just mentioned it now on an entry rule, but it's the same on an exit rule. So always be sure that you're using the proper, you could say, bid or ask. That way, you're not going to be taken out on a spike at a really bad time. And we have math coming up, and that'll also allow you to give, you could say, to actually create a rule where you say, you can literally take it here. You could say that the strategy symbol ask minus the strategy symbol bid, and then you can get a size on that. So that'll allow you to do some math that will actually describe what you're looking for. But today, there's no individual rule to monitor spread widening. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, as well, Michael, I think it's quite easy to pause your strategy whenever you want it and start it again. This you have shown.
That's true. It's something I've been experiencing on my own trading account. I see Atos here coming with a very, very, very good perspective, and this is something I've experienced, that I've traded for years with this, and this is one of the things I can never agree on what to do, because really what I find that this is a balance, because if I know that Janet Yellen and Draghi is going to have a press conference at the same time, and I'm trading anything that looks like euro or dollar, I know this is going to be crazy times. So for 2 hours, the market is going to be all over the place, and it's going to try to digest every single word that they say. And given, depending on which strategy I have running, can it cope with that? Is it, can it handle very large swings very quickly, or would I be better off standing on the sidelines? And you could say it's a judgment call today, because if it's, you could say, when I did a back test on my strategy, maybe I did 6 months back test. Yellen and Draghi also talked during that back test. So I know already how my strategy is performing when they speak, because I have 6 months of experience with it through the back test. So in that case, I'm a big fan of allowing my strategy to be in the market, because that's what it was designed for. And the second I begin, and I can do it right now, I just click the enable button and say, yep, close it. So the second I do that, I'm literally, you can say, I'm interfering with the automated component of algo trading, and now I'm actually making a judgment call, and I'm back to my emotions. Am I scared of Draghi? Am I scared of what he's going to say? That's my emotion. It's not rational. So it is difficult, and I think it's up to the individual how to do it. I honestly, I've done this many times, and half of the time I was right. I should have stayed out. The other half, I could have made a fortune keeping the algorithm turned on. So it's a very, very tough call, and it's very well spotted, Athos. A great question. It's very difficult to answer.
In any case, the very good thing as well that I like about the building the strategy in general is that many people who are programming their EAs or are trading manually, they focus a lot on the indicator. They can have 50 different indicators, a lot of different rules, and very few rules on the money management. What you saw here, Michael, and that I really like, is that it's quite the opposite. You are focusing on the indicator, building the rules, but you really stick to very good different building blocks in your money management structure. So, for example, the one that doesn't allow to open another trade if one was open for a certain period of time, or different features like that, that allow you not to have any bad surprise during news or during highly volatile time, for example.
That's correct. That's correct. There are definitely some options here.
Yeah. So we talk about expert trading, but it's not what I want to say is that it's not this expert because it's difficult, because you have to do a lot of programming. The expert trading comes in sticking into very good money management rule as well, and sticking to the indicators. So by having all those rules that you are pointing out here, you put all your chance on your side. Not to make a crazy profit, but at least not to have any bad surprises or wiping out an account because you are protected.
Definitely so. Absolutely. Absolutely. So any final questions? No. Well, if you have any questions.
I think there is no more question. As usual, guys, we will add the webinar on the website, and if you have any other question, you can always here are the contact details, or you can contact us, okay, as well.
Yeah. Contact support or contact. Is it that you, Nordin, or who's taking the questions from your side?
Yep.
Okay.
We'll have
great.
the contact details as well on the website.
Yep, perfect.
Thank you.
Well, if you have any
Michael,
questions, reach out to us. Thank you very much. Well, thank you very much for inviting me.
Always a pleasure, and looking forward. Also, thank you for the teaser to the new TradeWorks features coming soon. I heard that, and I think people like well.
Yep, absolutely.
A lot of new features coming soon. That's really exciting. And thank you guys for attending, and speak to you soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, Michael.
Bye bye.